took that as a chance to become an early riser. Try it out for once.
The early bird gets the worm. And speaking of worms, no, I'm just kidding. Let me give your
That's right. Oh, that's right.
let me give your bio first before we get into it. Katharina Unger, born and raised in Austria. Katharina now lives and works in Hong Kong and Vienna. She is a thought leader in sustainability, food, and agricultural innovation. Katharina founded Livin Studio and Livin Farms, companies leading in the field of edible insects and novel food innovations. Katharina is frequently booked as a lecturer, professional keynote speaker for TV, interviews worldwide, and for her work, she has received numerous awards, fellowships, and stipends. Katharina believes that a designer needs to observe the world on a systems level in order to create impact through physical or strategic inventions. Why bugs?
Why bugs? Because they're good and fun and sustainable. That's it in a nutshell. Yeah. Yes. Like maybe to add on to that bio, what we do at Livin Farms now at my company is actually two things with bugs and about bugs. So one is education. So we use insects as a vehicle, so to say, and use our technology, an insect growing box, a mealworm growing box, to teach young people about sustainability and about everything that comes with it: zero waste, upcycling, and sustainable nutrition as well. And on the other hand, we do industrial technologies. So we're working on a very large machinery to make insects really a key ingredient of sustainable food systems, because they can eat food waste, industrial food waste, and turn it into highly nutritious and sustainable feeds and foods.
Wow. I mean, did you ever in a million years think that this is what you would get into? When did you become interested in this?
No, not at all. People always think I was born as a bug lover, but that is absolutely not the case. I'm not an early bird in that sense. No, I come from the background of industrial design, of product development. I developed many different kinds of products and when I moved to Asia, to Hong Kong, that's the moment when I realized I really don't want to contribute making stuff that ultimately lands in landfill, but I wanted to work on something that really sustainably carry us into the future and fixes some large issues of the world.
Wow. Are you aware of the fact that you're part of a global conspiracy theory? Have you heard this?
No, can you tell me?
Oh, it's always the joke is like they want us to eat bugs and live in pods. This is like
right. Yeah.
The kind of like there's a whole rabbit hole you can go down. And so I was laughing about it, and then when I was looking at all of this stuff, it's just fascinating to me because I was thinking about things that we eat that we just take for granted. Like sushi, I'll eat uni and not even think twice about it. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, bugs, weird. But I had to learn to like uni,
Yeah. No, totally. It's actually quite like if you're in depth in that topic, then it's actually quite funny that people would get upset about other people suggesting to eat bugs, or to put it in the food chain, because they've been there all along the way. It's not like they're not there. Actually, there's a study I'm often quoting, which is that every one of us eats half a kilogram of insects every year. Without knowing, and that's not when you ride your bicycle with an open mouth or sleep with an open mouth or do anything like that, but it's in your food already. So really what we're doing is just something to really push the natural way. Insects are a key ingredient in almost any animal on the planet. And they can have very, very favorable effects on animals' health and on people's health. And that's really what we're looking for. In view of the food system, it has such a huge impact, because we spend so much resources on producing feeds for animals, producing growing crops just to feed animals. 30% of the world's feed of the world's crops grown goes into animal production. Fish meal is a key ingredient in animals' diets around the world, and we need 5 tons of ocean fish to get 1 ton of fish meal. So with every ton of fish meal that we can replace with insect meal, for example, we effectively save 5 tons of fish in the ocean. And that's major, looking at the overfishing and the depletion of the oceans that is happening right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's so much, because I was thinking a lot about this and just researching all of this stuff. What's interesting to me is that I was reading one of the interviews you did, and it said that sustainability generally sells more in Europe. People are more on board with that kind of, oh, this is sustainable, let's get on board with this. What is it in America that you find that is more convincing to people? Just because you said there was already quite a large group of Americans who are kind of at this because regulations it's not considered a novel food or like it is in Europe. So regulations just aren't as strict. Yeah.
Right. I think just since we're doing two very different kinds of business, I would say like what we do on the education end is really awareness building and giving tools to young people to understand what it is all about. We have this mealworm growing kit called the Hive Explorer and the hiveexplorer.com. We have all our teaching materials as well, which Christina from our Hong Kong office will have a talk about later on. And on the industrial side, we really try to look into, how can we affect businesses on a day-to-day basis in a positive manner. And in generally speaking, if you look at Europe as compared to the US, I would say that Europeans rely more or also push more proactively the governments and the system as a whole to do something. They're more outspoken about legislation that needs to change, and consumers need to be protected from a government end, while I find US consumers rather take the approach to fix things more immediately in their direct homes. So that's why the home consumer market is something really interesting in the US, because US consumers, individuals, are more likely to try out new things and be kind of play around in their homes and see how a zero waste lifestyle works out for them. And that I find pretty exciting, that you can really have an impact on an everyday person level, and the government does less to restrict that than in Europe. In Europe, the government is sort of this higher level instance that says, no, like, wait a second, we're going to first implement legislations before you guys try that out. And in the US, you kind of go ahead first and try it and see if it works.
Right. It's that old saying of like, ask permission later, apologize later or whatever. Just, I forget what this slogan is right off the...
has its pros and cons, but I would say, like, from a sustainability standpoint, it is really great that you also get the empowerment that you can do something on an everyday level. And that's what we really teach about in education, which is really, you can do very little things every day that make a difference.
Yeah, I think that's the hardest thing. I find myself inspired by this because it's something I really wanted to believe in my 20s. And then as I've got older, I feel like I've become more jaded or cynical or whatever the problem might be. where I remember, I feel like I had this interaction with my super old hippie aunt. I have many aunts. And she had her like recycling, and I was like, where's your recycling? And she was like, oh, I'm too old to believe in that. And it was so striking to me because this woman is the biggest hippie of all of my aunts, the most sustainable living West Coast. And to have her say something like, oh, I'm too old to believe in that, I was like, this is the most depressing thing I've ever heard. And I think that somewhere along the way, that message gets lost, kind of like we were talking at the beginning of the session, like the idea that creativity gets beaten kind of out of you as a youngster, and you have to just follow this path. How do we inspire and empower people to believe in their ability for one person to make a difference? I mean, we just had a great conversation with a woman who literally went to Haiti and made a huge difference. So we see like tiny instances of it, but how do you encourage that belief kind of on a bigger level?
I think giving people and companies in our case really the tools to also see the results for themselves. So if someone can turn their food waste in their home into something like insects, like mealworms that they can then use to, be it feeding their backyard chickens, or feeding their pets, or maybe being brave and cooking up some dish on their own, then that is a very impactful thing, because they literally, like, they can see and feel and taste the result of what they did and the effect of it. And that's a very powerful thing. We do that on company level with our B2B technologies, with showing companies how much more sustainable they can be, while making more profit as well on their industry food waste, and turning it into insect proteins instead of it going into biogas digesters. And this is empowerment. And bottom line is that when people are empowered, they do something positive, not only for themselves, but for the planet.
I love that. Wow, we could talk for a lot longer, and we're running out of time. So what inspires you? Who or what inspires you creatively?
What inspires me is many times, well, our customers, of course, and our team. And I count all of our tiny bugs as part of our team. I have millions of teammates, but also our teams in both in Hong Kong and in Austria, that really keep innovating every single day. It's not an easy industry. It combines agriculture with biotech, with technology. And there's many things still to learn and still to discover. And it amazes me how diligent and passionate the team is about really fixing big problems, while looking at worms on an everyday basis.
Well, thank you. Are you presenting later this week?
We have a presentation later today, actually, or 7 p.m. I think Hong Kong time today. Not sure what that equates in US time. But Christina from the Hong Kong office will be talking about the Hive Explorer, our education product.
Cool. Well, I'd love to hear more. I'll probably reach out to you about my podcast, and thank you for the work you're doing.
Yes.
It's awesome.
Good talking to you.
You too. Thank you.